It is MMA Weekly Radio. I am Damon Martin. We are joined today by Alchemist MMA manager Lex McMahon. And Lex, obviously, we've talked in the past. We've talked to a lot of your clients in the past. But this last weekend was a bit of a controversial weekend because of some situation that went down with Alessio Sakara. I got to imagine it's still pretty fresh in your mind, everything that went down.
Yeah, absolutely, Damon. First of all, thank you very much to you and MMA Weekly for having me on. It's always a privilege. I got a call fight day morning from Joe Silva, and I just had a feeling it was just going to be one of those days. The call from Joe was, hey, Nick Ring is ill. He's out of the fight. Costa doesn't get to fight tonight, unfortunately. I'm thinking, wow, that's a pretty rough way to start the day. It can't get any worse. Obviously, we'll go to the fights and everything will be fine. But, unfortunately, that's not the case. I know you were there. You caught the fight. You saw there was obviously some controversy around the Sakara decision. Let me take you through, my perspective of the situation. Watching the fight, Alessio rocked Cote after taking a very tough shot himself from Patrick. He rocked Cote with some elbows. I think those did a significant amount of damage, put Cote down to the ground, at which point Patrick was grabbing onto Alessio's legs. Alessio was using hammer fists to strike down around the side of the ear repeatedly. At no point, and I've watched the fight again, watched it in the replay in the arena, and obviously watched it live in the arena. At no point did Dan Miragliotta warn Alessio that he was striking to the back of the head, and I do believe that that's debatable whether or not he was, but there was no warning issue. The only thing that we got was a stoppage of the fight. Now, at the end of the fight, I'm getting up, I put my suit coat back on, and I'm getting ready to walk down to congratulate my client. It's taking longer than expected for the ring announcer to bring the fighters together to announce the judge's ruling. And so I stayed kind of sitting at my seat and waiting for Alessio to be announced the winner. Obviously, that didn't occur. It was ruled that Alessio was disqualified. I immediately went downstairs. Didn't go see Alessio. I actually went and sought out Mark Ratner and then the commissioner. Spoke with the commissioner. At the time, I was told, and I asked several, very pointed questions. One, was it a warning issued by Dan? No, there was no warning issued. Dan turned to us after the fight was over and sought guidance. In our view, it was illegal blows to the back of the head. We ruled it a disqualification. Now, we'll come back to that because I believe that's not true. I believe that there's been some very disingenuous statements made by the commission. But after I spoke with the commission, I went back, did an interview with Ariel because I felt it was very important to air the record to make sure that people understood that Alessio was not cheating, that even to the extent that in the heat of the moment, some of those blows did land to the back of the head. They were unintentional, and that at no point was Alessio provided a warning. Alessio should have been, the action should have been stopped. Alessio should have been placed off to the side, and Patrick should have been given an opportunity to collect himself if, in fact, those were illegal blows. Dan didn't do any of that, and I wanted to make sure that everybody, that we highlighted those points. After my interview with Ariel, I went and sat down with Alessio, who's obviously very distraught and upset. It wasn't necessarily the losing; it was the fact that he was being painted out to be a cheat, something which he's absolutely not. Alessio Sakara is one of the nicest guys in MMA. He's also one of the cleanest, most honorable fighters out there. So, being very frustrated by the situation, I continued to investigate, and I went and got I requested from the commission the actual scorecard. They said, well, it's not back here anymore. We don't know where it's at. It may be in the back. Who knows? We're not sure. I was persistent and spoke to Mark Ratner, and he arranged for me to get a copy of the scorecard. Now, I posted the scorecard through Instagram to Twitter. What's very interesting is you can clearly see when you're looking at the scorecard, kind of live, in your hand, that Alessio was ruled the winner by TKO in round 1 at a minute 26. That's then marked out in black highlighter. And then it's written in that Cote is won by disqualification. At no point was this scorecard released, because I believe it raised as many more questions as to how the fight actually was ruled. So, what I'm after is to get this changed from a disqualification to either what was originally ruled, which was a TKO in Alessio's favor, or a no contest. Dana White has said that this is the fight that he would like to see as a rematch. I immediately reached out to Joe Silva, who unfortunately wasn't in the arena because he'd been recuperating from a surgery. Joe and I chatted back and forth. He's amenable to the idea of a rematch. So I think a couple things need to occur. First is, we need to set the record straight, let everybody know that Alessio Sakara is not a cheat. In no way did he intentionally strike blows to the back of the head. Second, we need to appeal this decision, which I absolutely intend on doing tomorrow morning. I've already spoken to the commissioner, as I mentioned. And then thirdly, we need to get Patrick and Alessio back in the octagon and let them go at it. I want it on neutral territory. It's obvious Alessio is not going to get a fair shake in Canada. So, I think a great place would be in London in February. That's neutral territory for both guys, but it gives both guys enough time to get back into a camp. It makes a lot of sense. But wherever they fight, it needs to be neutral territory. And, I respect Patrick Cote a lot, and he's probably upset to hear that, we're contesting this. But at the end of the day, I think he's an honorable guy, and he wants to have, if it's a win, he wants it to be a win because he fought his heart out and won, not by a questionable set of decisions by a referee and then subsequently pressure from a commission, which is, I believe, what happened in this instance.
Yeah, and I talked to Patrick last night, and he actually told me, he said, I don't blame Alessio at all. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's a bad fighter. He actually said, refereeing's the toughest job, but he's like, I watched the replay, and, when you get to the 7th or 8th shot, he's like, the fact that he didn't step in there, again, to me, and kind of, again, without Cote kind of making controversy, it all kind of goes back on Dan Miragliotta, am I right? I mean, he never stepped in did it. When he stepped in, to me, watching it and the replay and watching it live there in the arena, it looked like he stepped in to stop the fight, not to say, oh, hold on, there's a foul going on. I think that really is the heart of the issue, am I right?
No, I agree 100%. If there was a foul going on, there's recourse for the referee. Stop the foul, warn the fighters, allow the fouled fighter the opportunity to regroup and continue the fight. None of those actions occurred. So really, Dan Miragliotta and Dan's a good guy, but he committed he had an off night. Bottom line, he committed a very bad job of refereeing, and the commission. And he probably was swayed by the thunderous chants of the hometown crowd and the commission who was supporting the hometown guy. I mean, at the end of the day, this was not an objective decision that was reached. I mean, when it's ruled, and I've got the document that proves it, when it's ruled a TKO, how do you come back subsequently and change it? Did they watch replays and change it? Well, that's not allowed in this province. So that certainly couldn't be a reasonable explanation. So there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. I certainly, being a zealous advocate for my clients, and am going to investigate to the fullest and try to, resolve this. I think what's equitable, for all parties is that we make this a no contest and let Patrick and Alessio lace up the gloves again and go after it on neutral territory. And I think a lot of fans would love to see that fight because, to Patrick's credit, and again, I'm not a huge Patrick Cote fan, he rocked Alessio. He had Alessio in a tough spot. And Alessio fought back, and, as he typically does, he stands and bangs, and he caught Patrick. And he had Patrick in very, very deep water, and to the point that any of those blows were to the back of the head, because Patrick kept turning his head, ducking away, trying to get away from shots. So, I really do think this is a fight that needs to be redone, and I think the UFC feels that way. And, while I'm not speaking for them, based on the conversations I have had, I think that they're of the mindset that let's do this thing again, and let's get a real outcome. And whatever that outcome is listen, at the end of the day, if Patrick Cote goes in and beats Alessio Sakara fair and square, more the power to Patrick Cote. Good for him. If Alessio Sakara goes in and beats Patrick fair and square, good for him. But let's not have bad refereeing and a questionable ruling by a commission settle an outcome.
Do you, and I don't want to play conspiracy theory too much here, Lex, but I got to ask the question, do you believe, because again, it was so weird because it did take so long, and I'm watching this all go down, and I'm like, why is this happening? But, in my opinion, here's what happened. Mergliata made the call, he stopped the fight, fight's over, TKO, Alessio gets the win. Do you believe, and again, maybe this is me playing conspiracy theory, but do you believe he went outside at that point, and the commission is the one that really pressured this to change? Again, I don't know, I'm just saying, do you believe that's what happened?
Listen, I don't know because I'm not in the commission's mind. I'm not in Dan Mergliata's mind. I know that Dan's a good guy. He's made a lot of great calls in the past. I think he got the call last night wrong. I think the fact that it took so long meant there was some sort of review going on. I think that the thunders, cheers for Patrick Cote and boos for Alessio Sakara, put on by what I believe are some of the greatest fans in MMA, the Montreal fans. I think it had an influence, and I think the commission, everybody's human. Maybe they gave into it. I don't know. But I do know that there's some questions that need to be answered, and we did not get an equitable result last night. And Alessio Sakara came out on the short end of the stick, and we need to right that wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, again, that's, and even from talking to Patrick, even he said that, obviously that's not the way he wants to win a fight. He wants to do it again. He has nothing against Alessio. And I think that's the worst part is because it's being made out with the fighters. And in my opinion, it's neither of the fighters' fault.
Right. I agree with you. And I had breakfast or coffee with Alessio this morning. Last night he was very upset, obviously. But I had coffee with him this morning, and he says, Lex, I respect Patrick so much, and it was such a good fight, and I just want the fight to be the fight that it should have been. And I want to either win or lose by what I do in the cage, not what, someone else, some outside influence does. And I really think, and again, I don't want to speak for Patrick because I'm not Patrick, I'm not his representative, but he seems like a really good guy who's a known professional. He has a reputation of being a good guy. I would think he wants the same thing. And if that's the case, whatever the ruling is in this fight, obviously I'm going to fight for no contest, but whatever the ruling is, let's do this thing again. Let's find out who really is the better man in the octagon on that given night.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's hope, we'll hear something from the appeal. I know you said you're going to file that first thing in the morning, and then hopefully in the near future we'll hear something back. And I think it was Dana, again, my head's still a blur from being in Montreal and traveling and everything, but I think Dana said he agreed it should have just been a no contest at that point. So at worst, we could get it turned into a no contest that way, because let's be honest, a year from now when we look back at this, it's going to show as a loss on the record. And that's, obviously no fighter wants that. It's not something we remember a year from now. A year from now, it's just a loss.
That's right. And, listen, Alessio is a fan favorite despite the boos from last night. He's very much a fan favorite worldwide. And, we want to see him continuing to fight in the UFC for a long time because it's where he belongs. And I think he brings a great deal of value to the UFC because he is such a fan favorite. So a loss is never something that anybody wants to have on their record, especially when it's one that came the way this one came.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Lex, we appreciate you taking the time to kind of break down everything. Obviously, let us know how it goes with the appeal. Hopefully, the other thing we'll hear very soon is when that Alessio Sakara Patrick Cote rematch is made, and I'm sure it'll be another barn burner, because I tell you what, that fight, in about a minute and a half that it took place, it was a hell of a good fight.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll definitely keep you posted. But I mean, again, my hat is off to Patrick Cote because he came into the octagon to defend his home turf. He had every intention of putting on a war. He came forward. He threw some bombs. He rocked Alessio. He had Alessio in some very deep water. And to Alessio's credit, he fought back. He showed his character. And that's what makes this sport so amazing is you've got guys, these men of character, who are willing to step in and put it all on the line, and that's what the fans really want to see. So, it would be a tremendous disservice to the fans not to let this fight go down the way it really should.
Yep, totally agree. Well, Lex, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Keep us updated on what's going on, and hopefully in the very near future we'll hear about a rematch and hopefully a little bit of change in what went wrong on Saturday night, which again didn't had nothing to do with the fighters. Unfortunately, I personally believe it was bad reffing that night. Nothing against Dan, but I guess we'll kind of see how it plays out, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time to break it all down for us.
My pleasure, amigo. And again, thank you, and thank the MMA Weekly team for always doing such a great job.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Lex.
All right, Damon. Cheers,
bye-bye.
bud.